Going live. I am going live because me and Grace from Delirious Agent wanted to talk live about stuff, so we're going to do it. If you want to join us or chuck a question in the chat or anything, then go for it. It's only just telling everybody that I'm doing a live video, so I don't think there's anybody actually watching yet. But yeah, we just thought we'd chat because things are obviously changing a bit. So it seemed like a hello North Cafe project. Good to see you. Yeah, still waiting for Delirious Agent to join us. Delirious Agent does radio plugging, social media management, and stuff like that. Oh, here comes the request. Yeah, so we thought we'd have a chat about the changing landscape. Yeah, I've accepted. How is everything going with North Cafe project, by the way? Hello, good
Hello.
grief. Hello,
Mm.
hello, Grace from Delirious. Hello, Pitzode. How are you doing? Um, yeah. So, hello,
Hi.
hi. We were gonna have this chat because obviously there's a kind of a new developments, I guess, and wicked. Good to hear. Going a lot of bookings. What for live stuff? Lots of wonderful feedback. Good stuff. Awesome. That's all you can really. I mean, people get a bit twisted because of the social media being all about numbers when really the feedback is actually what we really want. Like I'd prefer for every 20 likes, I'd prefer have one comment, being honest. So yeah, so that's really good. What do you think about that, Grace, as a social media person?
Repeat the question.
It wasn't really a question. I just said that people get so obsessed with numbers.
Yeah.
For every 20 likes that I get, I'd rather have one comment.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because I think when you like something, it's just essentially like a flip, not a flippant thing, but it's not as much as the comment, is it? It's like back in the early days of Facebook when people, it's like, oh great, they just liked my post, but do they really care? They're just doing it out of a kind of like, I noticed you, you know. Um, but yeah, so yeah, definitely a comment is way better, and then it
Mm.
actually like pushes um your engagement rating anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, North Cafe Project just said there, I just want to have them be comfortable and enjoy themselves. I've never worried about numbers. Yeah, I get that. Obviously, I guess it depends on ambition levels, what you're trying to achieve with the project and everything, because obviously, not when I say project, I mean whoever it might be. I'm not specifically saying you, like a band or artist or whatever they're trying to achieve. For some things, obviously, if you don't get certain numbers, then you're not going to get those other opportunities and things like that. So it is a bit of a chasing some numbers game. So I'm not like dissing anybody who does that or whatever. But yeah, it really everything needs to be a lot more like catered specifically to what each band or artist particularly needs, and they need to go for what they need, not just jump in with this kind of weird rat race kind of thing, which was kind of what we were a bit going to talk about, wasn't it, Grace?
yeah, I guess so. I mean, it's and also sort of trying to keep up with that rat race whilst the current landscape is changing so quickly as
Mm.
well. Um, we were talking earlier about it, Lee, and I was thinking because we were talking about the changes that actually has happened to Meta since Monday, without being too political about things.
Yeah, do you want
Um,
to just say some of those things in case people don't know?
yeah, yeah. So obviously, again, this is trying to be sort of politically neutral about things, and also, I don't know what's going to happen with the live stream, because do you remember during the pandemic, we there were bans. Was it the soap girls were like literally just talking about the vaccine,
Yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah,
suddenly like
yeah,
things got taken
yeah. Of
down.
course, yeah,
So
yeah.
so
That's
I'm going to
bound
try
to
and
avoid key trigger words. Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's. When you say about trying to be bipartisan or whatever. I think like the part of the issue is if you're on a platform where you're trying to be that way, because I personally, from my perspective as an artist, and also when representing these bands on this label and wanting to get their careers further or their music out there to as many people as possible, I'm my primary concern, especially as an artist, say, is if someone likes my music, I'm not. My first question isn't, and who did you vote for? I primarily see the fact that they've seen something that they relate to in what I created, and therefore I see like a bridge. Um, uh, and so in that way, I'm always trying to reach as many people. I always have my own views, and if people don't actually have to have the same views as the artists they follow either. Like in terms of, it doesn't actually mean that you can't like their music anymore. They might still be able to write a great ballad, but just vote for someone that you don't like. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? But um, yeah, I mean, I North Cafe project. When you say it's completely irrelevant, I understand how it would be relevant for some people. I understand. I grew up in a time where Nirvana would say, if you're homophobic or sexist or whatever, we don't want you as a fan, etc. And I do agree with like elements of that kind of thinking, obviously, because I'm not try. I don't really know how something that I put out would actually appeal to someone who had such radically opposite views to me. But at the same time, I do see it as like a bridge. Yeah, who you voted for? Yeah, totally. Well, it is. Yeah, it's pretty much irrelevant. If you're, it depends how much it's sewn into what you do as well. If you're an artist who is talking about female reproductive rights or something like that, and that's a key thing in your what you do and everything, then I can see these things being more specific and being more divisive and being more impactful or important to them. But what I was driving at, actually, before we get sidetracked onto that, is that whilst I'm trying to be bipartisan, non-political, trying to be as welcoming and as inviting as I can be, if the platforms themselves are not keeping that kind of level playing field, I find that quite tricky, because um, how do you even, like, then you are literally on your, and like there's paid advertising of course on these platforms, but just being on these platforms does generate income for them. So um, I'm personally not a fan. um, I've also seen it happen in reverse. Could you explain a little more about what you mean about it happen in reverse galactophonic, just so I know your point? Um, but yeah, I'm sure it probably has, whatever it might be. Most things usually do. But yeah, I'd like to know more what the details. But yeah, I think it's really important that it's. Let's put it this way. I don't like billionaires. I don't like mouthy ones who are all up in your face. I think it's crass. I think when we start having to follow their rules, I also wonder if there's something mentally wrong with billionaires, because I feel like if I had 1 million, I'd stop. I feel like if I had 5 companies, that would be enough for me. I feel like if I was even of decent standing and people respected me a bit, I wouldn't necessarily need to be officially their leader. So I do think there's an insecurity or mental illness of some kind in people who constantly are never satisfied. And it is kind of weird when they come from privilege and then move into a position through lots of respect, from people. and then suddenly we're following their rules. So we're following the rules of potentially mentally ill people who just had a lot of good start in life. And I don't like being on these platforms because of that, full stop. But then if these platforms are then going to become horribly skewed towards a certain viewpoint, um, oh, hey, let me just catch up. Then yeah, then where do we move from there? Is what I'm saying. How do you justify being on a platform which is owned by someone you don't like, who is saying things you don't like, etc., just to get your art out there? And can we
Well,
not find something else now? Like now that it's becoming so problematic. Before you answer that, can you gather your thoughts on that, please, Grace? And I'll quickly address this galactophonic thing. I mean, artists don't want fans to support them if they don't subscribe to their worldview. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Tons of people are that way, and I don't blame them particularly at all. How you want to earn your money or get your views, or even who you want to play to, should be to a degree up to you. If I was playing a gig and there were a load of like Nazis causing crap in it, I'd want them out. Do you know what I mean? So I do agree with. Yes, and to me that makes no sense whatsoever, because closing off part of your fan base. Well, I mean, more than without without treating it like numbers, it's also just connection. Like on a very simple level, I want to connect with other people. I don't mind if they have all the same views as me, but also by listening to something, they might broaden their views. Through being a fan of Public Enemy or Ice Cube or Tori Amos or like loads of different bands, um, I've kind of taken on views and ideas that I wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to, and two, as likely to take to my bosom because I didn't like the person. So yeah, it's also just about that connection, really. And I think we originally wanted to play for people because we wanted a connection, not because we wanted people to go, "You're amazing, I love you," or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think, especially in the older you get, music shouldn't be devices at the end of the day. Yeah, I mean, it can be. I don't mind. I'm like right up for causing some crap and winding some people up and putting across an alternative view and everything. So I'm really not. I don't want to criticize art in any way, but I do feel like we're into this really weird territory where musicians are like, what are you going to do if you're not going to be on these social media platforms? How are you going to? Are you going to go back to the 90s and like literally the only way you can do it is like putting up posters everywhere and traveling to new cities and trying to get what little headway you can with that, and constantly petitioning press and radio that are completely blind and deaf to you? Do you know what I mean? It's a very tricky situation that we're in now, as people who need to ply our trade to someone. I saw this video that was equal parts cringe and also totally true about some girl on TikTok who's saying, I earn a living through doing music because I have TikTok. She was also saying like a load of other stuff, and I also thought it was kind of sad that you kind of have to exist through only TikTok. But we really need to, yeah, I mean, fanzines do need to come back. Blogs, online blogs and stuff are really important. We need a new infrastructure which is controlled by us, essentially, which does mean also chatting with more people who might not always have the same view as you. So the more we break everything down, the less we can do with it. In Oxford, we had this really thriving scene that just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then at some point, all the promoters split off and everybody started doing like such genre specific gigs that it was like even the doom metal guys didn't play with the stoner metal guys or whatever. And it's like, wow, this is dividing up the crowd. So you used to have 200 people at a gig, now you got 20 at each. Do you know what I mean? And soon enough the scene dies. Do you know what I mean? So there's a certain amount of community and us all being part of one thing that I think is necessary for this thing to work. And I wonder how we're going to manage to do that without social media. With that, um, question, how did you vote? Answer, I make music. If you want to talk politics, find a politician. Well, yeah, I mean, I don't mind, like, politics has become, unfortunately, a bit like the new pop music. Like, who do you like, Rolling Stones or the Beatles? Who do you like, Duran Duran or Spandau Ballet? Who do you like, Biden or Trump? And I feel like it's a bit it's become a bit flimsy and a bit tacky. And I would rather see some boring old guys who really know what they're doing in a job than a load of people who know how to spin or know how to grab my attention via media. So yeah, Rage Against the ATM Machine. Well, here's the point. Rage Against the Machine were on Sony. So were they compromising themselves, or were they using a distribution method that got their message out to loads more people that became rebels or revolutionaries and got knowledge that they otherwise wouldn't have got? So there's the constant debate. How much of a deal with the devil are you willing to make to try and do some good? And yeah, I don't know. So with that, Grace, you've been sitting there really patiently. What have you got to say about this?
Um, well, actually, just to touch on, you were talking about we don't want billionaires running things, and I saw an interview with someone from who works for Meta the other day, and she was saying like it's ridiculous that in America we have elements of Meta making trillions of dollars, but Europe can't catch up and even make billions of dollars in some markets. And like the overall feedback for that was that's because we don't want billionaires. We don't want companies being in the trillions. We don't want these companies making trillion and billionaires. So I think that in the first instance, that's very telling. Although Meta is a global company, there's still this divide on how it's operating in the US
Right. Yeah.
versus Europe. And also the other difference with the US markets and the EU markets is that the US have completely different data regulations. So they're able to make more money off of their users' data. Whereas in the EU and the UK, obviously we've got really strict data privacy rules and regulations. So there's only so much data mining that Meta can physically do in those countries.
Right.
So yeah, and we don't really want Meta to be mining any more data than they already are, really. Unfortunately, I think now that we've got, three of the world's richest men in bed with an American government, it doesn't paint a pretty picture for how social media is going. And I think we discussed earlier, Lee. I think I was saying about how now we're getting almost like different social media platforms are becoming almost like different tabloid newspapers. So you've got
Mm-hmm.
one that's, right wing, left wing,
Yeah.
middle, out there, and in that respect, then they're almost funneling specific news to you. Now, what I find interesting is since the pandemic, we've had a world of people who have essentially said, we're having our speech impaired. We want free speech. We want these world leaders because we don't feel like we can say what we want. Well, now, since Monday, we've now got a $1 trillion company that's in at two trillionaires or whatever, and $1 trillion companies that are in bed with a specific political party that are being biased towards a political party. So you're not getting free speech anymore. Like
Yeah.
since
Well, just to provide facts behind that, obviously, if you searched the word Democrat
hashtag
hashtag
Democrat,
on what was that on
that
Facebook or
that was on Feta, Facebook Meta,
better?
Meta.
What a
I love
cheesy
it.
platform that one
I
is. Yeah.
love it. The Greek version. Yeah. Um,
Those Feta ads though, they do really well. All my Feta data has been stolen. No. Sorry, yeah, okay, but yeah, anyway.
yeah.
But yeah, so you searched it, if you searched it across Meta, you could not find
It's
anything that was
because
hashtag Democrat, which is
yeah, there's no
obviously
content.
huge.
But
Mm,
then hashtag Republican. You've now got on your search engines, like literally across Instagram and Facebook, follow, because I manage a couple of American accounts. So then you have
mm,
follow the president, follow the vice president, follow. You're getting this stuff fed to you,
mm.
and to me, that seems like kind of World War Two by North Cafe Project.
Thank you, North Cafe Project. And very quickly, yes, totally agree. UK artists totally screwed all of the time, not most of the time. We've got no venues, we've got no rights. We've got nothing to do whatsoever, and we're dying here when we had the Beatles, for God's sake. So yeah, I
Mm,
completely agree with you. Financial difference is crazy. If only the wonderful Live Loose could be here and tell us a little about how France treats artists and how they treat it very seriously as well. Maybe that's a chat for another day, and hopefully you'll be able to make that one. But thanks for joining us, and keep up the good work.
mm.
Yes. Hello, Goth Soul.
Hi, Goth Soul. Yeah, so yeah, the kind of I don't want to say propaganda, but it is kind of, I worry it's going towards propaganda where you've got like World War II, help Uncle Sam, your country needs you,
Yeah,
filtering these
yeah.
kind of,
Yeah, there's
and
all
so
that
I
potential,
yeah,
obviously. I think it's good to not I think it's good to not
no,
catastrophize, but obviously there's a lot of nervous kind of stuff that we've seen over the last little while, last few days even, that kind of makes you go like, wow, everything's really skewing towards one thing. So again, in this way that like if you're trying to be bipartisan or non-specific political, denominational politically,
mm,
then are you even reaching both sides when you join a platform like this
yeah,
then as well?
yeah,
So for so many artists now,
mm,
there's both the double-edged sort of, on the one side, if you're not going to even reach the people that have the subscribing views who might like your messages and your music, etc., etc., but also these guys aren't even cool. Like, it's not cool. Like, these guys are like dorks. Do you know what I mean? So like I've never seen such uncool people in my life
mm,
as the people who own these platforms. And so there's nothing cool or rad about anything that we're doing anymore. And so that
yeah,
also has like a that has an impact on anything that actually wanted that, like, that has a shred of knowing what's actually cool and what's
yeah,
actually, rebellious. Like the same way as I say you can't be a rebel band and thank Amazon for an award, um,
mm, yeah,
is the same kind of ideology I'm talking about here.
yeah,
If you're a bunch of rebels and you're thanking Amazon, who put small businesses out of business all the time, then you're
yeah,
not on the right side of the
yeah,
fight. Do you know what I mean? And you can't
exactly.
stick up your middle finger to anything in the future and be taken
Mm,
seriously. So again, if we're going to be on these platforms,
mm,
feeding the pockets and proliferation of these ideologies or even these biases or this or the earning or anything, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, how much do you want to be complicit versus how much do you want to give up your right to actually anybody find you at all?
and if
Do you know what I
if
mean?
I could just interject
Go
with
for it.
about the tick,
Oh, that was all I
just
had to say.
with the TikTok going down as well. Like I
Hmm.
just find it so okay. So there's this is all speculation at the moment, but there's speculation that POTUS um, made a deal, has potentially got a deal for a US buyer for TikTok before he came
Hmm.
in, and so they wanted to reinstate it after, because I think it was originally going to be obviously taken down until the buyer was initiated, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But I think he decided, or his team decided, no, put it back up because God, this is going to be, there's going to be some gold, and we want, because do you remember we were talking the other day about the organic algorithm for TikTok that was going to be boosted because of the initial drop, and then loads
Right.
of people are going to be rushing back onto
Yeah,
TikTok
yeah,
when it comes back
of course,
on,
yeah.
right? So
And we've
I
never
think,
seen as much favourable advertising for TikTok as in this last, whilst it was potentially being cancelled,
yeah,
right?
and it's crazy to me. Like I manage a couple of music accounts on TikTok, and then I go onto it, and then I'm waiting for videos to upload. So I do the scrolling because it boosts, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and I get addicted to these things because I'm an addict
Mm.
in so many ways. You've seen me on the penny machines. I'm like that with
Yeah.
scrolling anyway. But and then I'm just like, why is there so much like POTUS,
Mm.
inauguration stuff, British politics stuff coming up on this thing where I don't even follow a
Hmm.
single account, you know. So
Yeah.
it's kind of
Well,
scary in
yeah,
that
I
way
mean, I
because
find it weird that, I don't get shown your
yeah,
posts like at all
yeah,
on Instagram,
yeah,
and you're my wife,
yeah,
and I'm 100% interested in, not all of them, but I'm, like it should be popping up on my feed. So I do wonder also what is the algorithm
mm,
actually doing, like when it decides who you're actually interested in? Like is it saying, oh right, he's probably going to go to her page,
yeah,
so we don't need to push them that
yeah.
way? Or but that still doesn't really make much sense, because if I then don't go to your page, shouldn't it start pushing it?
And also my like say for like my personal thing, like we all know that in terms of what works well on um say Instagram, what works well is organic posts, carousel photos, little reels, like journaling, right?
Mm,
So my posts are almost always that,
mm,
and they get at least 20 likes each time. So
mm-hmm.
if you're being shown the most popular
Right.
posts in your feed,
Yeah.
then that then basically means that um, the that the algorithm now is being skewed to it's being pushed in a different way, and
Mm,
so therefore, um, what does that mean? A, in terms of online safety and what people are being exposed to, because if you can essentially push an agenda, it's essentially
mm.
getting an audience hooked and then pushing an agenda. Because let's face it, like most people who go on Instagram or TikTok will just scroll. They're not
Yeah.
going on there going, let me look at my um they'll see what's in the
Yeah.
stories and they'll see what pops up on
Yeah,
their
they don't
feed in the
go to
first.
pages. They don't go to pages, basically.
No,
Yeah,
they'll see what's
yeah.
like they'll because their attention span is so small. They'll see what's in
Hmm.
their like first 20,
Yeah.
or they'll think, oh, I went to. They might search someone if they went to a gig, and then that will show on their feed for a while. But essentially, most people
Hmm.
just go on these pages to just doom scroll for
Hmm.
hours. And then if you're doom scrolling with an agenda from the billionaire company that's in bed with someone
Yeah,
who's
yeah, yeah.
running the
Well,
world,
also,
that for me is worrying.
also, barely anybody really actually goes onto social media for politics.
Mm. Well, this is the other thing I was going to touch on is because of the fact that I've seen so many musicians this week, like since the infamous salute from Space
Yeah,
Boy
yeah.
a couple
Mm,
of days ago, right?
mm.
And
From the
like
guy
I
who used to be Tony Stark, but now seems like he's
Doctor
Doctor Doom. Yeah, okay.
Doom, Doctor Doom scroll.
Thanks for tipping us off for that happening, Kevin Feige. You warned us like months ago, but yeah.
um, but yeah, I see like so many musicians go, I'm off it. I'm just off it,
Mm,
and these are my morals. I can't stand by while someone does that. It's like, but it's not just him who was at that inauguration. It's not just him. Like, I'm I'm sorry, but now we can't have sides in social media. I understand the anger 100%, but just because Zuckerberg isn't as stupid as
right.
Musk
Yeah.
doesn't make him
Yeah.
any less
Just because he's less happy to just like fucking wind people up. Excuse my language.
yeah,
Yeah, but just because he's like not the kind of walking through hell with gasoline
yeah,
drawers on type attitude that what's his name takes. Yeah,
yeah.
that
So if we're going to talk about like right versus left, oh, I'm saying like I've seen so many musicians go, oh, I'm staying in my safe space of Meta. Okay,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
right,
That's not a
Meta have
thing. Well,
integrated
there's
a
Ben was telling me he's on a Ben Blackout Orchestra was telling me he's on a Meta. There's a Meta boycott going on right now, apparently, to do with this stuff. But I hadn't heard anything
no,
about it. So yeah, this is the first I heard about it. But yeah, but I get that as
yeah,
well. But also like it's just a week boycott or whatever. So I don't know.
uh,
But this is kind of why I wanted to have these conversations, because
yeah.
obviously we're all on here, and what are we going to do about it?
It's really tough, isn't it? Because like So, like I was saying to you earlier, Lee, Meta have now introduced, they're trying to introduce this highly complex AI system where people can essentially, Meta can write your post for you, which I'm really sorry, don't use AI to write your post. They use the same script all the time. They bring in loads
You
of
will
dumb stuff.
love this. No, 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 no. It will
Discover
add
the
a
elegance.
what's the name to any home.
You can't wait to listen to this. Imagine yourself. Imagine yourself turning the volume like, oh, shut up. Anyway, sorry. I hate
Well, you
it.
know, it's so weird,
I
isn't it? Like the
hate
way
it.
that people are adopting, like I keep saying, there's enough generic stuff going on in life anyway.
Yeah,
With like humans. Humans are being generic enough. We don't really need AI pretending to be humans and doing a bad job of
I
that.
know.
We've got enough humans being humans and doing a bad job
Yeah.
of it. Do you know what I mean? So,
So, whatever side you fall about the use of AI, whether you think it's brilliant, whether you think it's not, the amount of water that it takes to cool down the computers that use AI is so bad for the environment.
mm,
So so if you're like, no, I'm not going to support X because of Elon Musk. Well, look what Zuckerberg's doing. You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
this
yeah.
is it's you know, and now not only is he doing that, but now he's doing the weird. He's taken off fact checking, right? Off of Meta.
Mm,
He's just taken that off, so anyone can say anything. They can post whatever flipping video they want,
mm-hmm.
and now there's
Yeah.
not. He's taken off the this might like you know this might be thinking false information. I report.
Ah,
Okay,
that's so good. That means I can post a picture of Mark Zuckerberg with a little courgette for a penis and say this is a real picture. Oh,
yeah, exactly. And
brilliant. Okay, I'll do
for
that
our
tomorrow.
American watchers, that's a zucchini.
Oh,
So,
zucchini. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. A very small zucchini. Yeah.
um, but so and my about that, which yeah, so you can post anything without it being fact checked, essentially.
Mm.
So that's quite dangerous. It used to, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm a bit of a Karen on social media. So every time I get an inbox from like someone where like the butt is on the profile
Mm.
and I know it's like a fake account, I
Mm.
report it. And guess what? I have not had a single report back from Meta saying that
Yeah, of
this
course.
infringes
Of
on
course.
terms.
Because because at the end of the day, they're also these accounts give likes to the posts that aren't doing as well.
Yeah,
So they're serving two purposes. They're like because for their thing, they're going and trying to find like lonely people who aren't getting as much satisfaction out of social media as they wish, and so maybe they want to go and spend their time on OnlyFans instead. Um, and reach a conclusion of some kind. But the the point is that actually in the meantime they're driving engagement on accounts, so they're helping Meta when something isn't getting any likes, it's getting likes from that still. Do you know what I mean? So it's still driving all the content. So it's actually working totally in their favor. There are so many accounts like that now that it's crazy. Like, I've had got one thing on, I think it's on Meta, with three accounts, and they're the same girl's name but reorganized. Like I don't know if it was Lucy, Eloise, whatever. Oh, I don't know. It just rearranges the names in three ways, and all three of those accounts have liked the same post. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, what is going on? So yeah, I mean, if it isn't, so getting back to music, obviously, what does this spell for? Like, what? I mean, obviously, I feel it's super important to drive people back to places where you can speak to them unfiltered in the first place anyway, and also you can direct, without sounding cynical about it, direct market to them, i.e. show them stuff that they might be interested in. And I think like your own website, your mailing list, Bandcamp. I don't think YouTube's going anywhere. I'm not very happy with Lucian Grange and YouTube destroying music just as much as Spotify really, but nobody really talking about it. But like, but at the same time, I don't see YouTubers going anywhere, and I also see it as more of like your own platform a bit that you have more control over. So, so like outside of that, do you know anything? And also, is that right? I mean, and how will we get people to that without being on social media? What are we gonna what are we gonna do, Grace? What are we gonna do?
It's really tricky, isn't it? Because it would be so great if this was happening, but there was still a thriving community. And I mean, I can't speak for every country, but certainly here in the UK, I mean, it's abysmal because usually you'd be able to play gigs, raise some money,
Mm.
get paid for your gigs. Can you imagine getting paid to actually play a gig instead of it being like, oh, but you're getting the exposure?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and
I mean, and
then
also you used to be able to sell merch at gigs.
at
So, as
gigs,
in like CDs, like your
yeah.
actual music, you could sell at a gig.
And I would always say this is just an add-on thing. I would say to any band that is doing merchandise, I would always advise not to do drop shipping. Try get a few things printed up, take it to your gig, get people to buy it or get someone to wear a physical t-shirt. If you can get it made in collaboration with a local artist or something like this,
Yeah.
even better because then you've got cross promotion and you're then supporting each other. Drop shipping has ruined everything. Honestly, it's just stupid and it infringes on people's copyright. You can upload anything and they'll print the thing.
Mm.
And it's not good quality and the logo will come off all the things that you buy anyway. So that's I mean that's just my opinion. Some people make a lot of money off of it, but then you have to I guess weigh up, money versus um what you're
Quality.
doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so I'd
Well,
always
isn't that
recommend,
just
doing
always
it
the game?
in
Yeah.
person.
Hmm.
Um, I read in the news in that
I
last
mean,
year,
bearing in mind that I understand the attraction of drop shipping because who can afford to get a load of stuff printed up anyway and then cart it about, keep it in your garage? Do you know what I mean? Like, same with getting physical merchandise,
mm,
like, records and CDs and stuff. I understand people not
yeah,
wanting to, make that initial investment. But I wonder also whether making that initial investment makes you work harder to actually shift it as well,
yeah,
because when you don't have any pressure, you also don't have much incentive, maybe.
yeah, 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 completely. We went to for my birthday, we went to that Lena Lovitch gig with the
Yeah,
Dust Fluff band, and
yeah.
they just had some badges and some stickers, and people buy it. you
Mm,
know, they buy that stuff, and if it's quirky and interesting, they will get it,
yeah.
and it's there, and they can
Yeah,
look
I
at
try
it.
and say I try and say to the bands I do consultancy for, I say try and have like merch that is in a range of prices as well, so that the poorest person can still walk away with a lighter of
Yeah,
with your band logo on it, and every time they light a cigarette, someone see your band logo. Do
yeah.
you know what I mean? So,
Be more Robert Smith about it. He always says that, doesn't he? He says, I don't
mm,
want people to come to the merch table and not feel like they can't afford anything. So they try and keep
right, yeah,
secure, try and
okay,
keep
that's
their
good. Yeah,
merch as, you know, um,
yeah, yeah.
uh, but then people sell all this merch and they barely, like they invest all this stuff and then they haven't even played like a gig, and then
Yeah,
so it's a bit like
yeah, it's
it's
important to make sure you have a
tough.
following before you try and sell
It's
stuff as well.
tough,
Like
isn't it?
build something up first. Yeah.
It's a really
I mean, get
tough
a demand
balance.
going, essentially, isn't it? Like, I think a lot of
Mm,
people, I think in a modern, we've spent like what, best part of 2 decades in the throe of like CEO worship and franchise,
mm,
trying, everybody wants to franchise and stuff. And
mm,
I think the art of maybe making something quite small and growing it quite small and having realistic ambitions
yeah.
that you then achieve and then do the next step and everything. I think that maybe has disappeared from people's kind of process,
Yeah.
especially in terms of like when bands used to be such an organic, such a homegrown little thing, and was better for it because we could, a band could, not my band necessarily, because I was busy pissing everybody off, but a band that was a lot less divisive than mine could sell 200 CDs at a gig, and that's like proper money. Like we would, like modern musicians would kill for the money that you get from selling 200 CDs at one gig. Do you know what I mean? Or a load of T-shirts. Do you know what I mean? Especially, you know, like the new metal bands in 2000 and like 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, that would play round Oxfordshire would have like the makings of a career going. Do you know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
really weird that we've arrived at this point where we willingly give away all our content to people who are richer than we can ever
Mm.
imagine for the chance that we might sometime get someone to listen to it who probably doesn't even, and it's not in the culture, the streaming culture isn't the kind of culture where it leads you to the band or the artist.
Yeah.
It leads you to more songs of that mood or genre or from that program or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So
And
we're not
it's
working in it.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, 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 it's fine. I was just gonna say, like, uh, I think as a society we are overburdened by choice, and because we've got access to everything we could ever possibly want, we don't we don't actually
Care
soak
about any
up what on
of
earth
it.
we're listening to. Like, have you seen those amount of viral videos where some more, oh mate, what are you listening to on your phones? And it's like, oh, I don't know actually. Oh,
Chill playlist
it's the
number 5, yeah.
yeah, or oh, I'm listening to The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, and they don't know. It's just
Yeah,
something
yeah,
that's
they
like
just
they're
found
like,
out
oh,
now. Yeah, yeah.
this is easy because this is the kind of mood I'm in, and this is bit, you know.
Yeah,
So
and,
then
and don't
it's
get me
really
wrong,
difficult.
there are good things to be said about playlists and the ability to find music through them, but it's not all the way that everybody's saying, because you still have to actually pay to get on it. That feeds you back no money whatsoever from Spotify. If that doesn't direct someone to another place, i.e., your own website, I guess your social media, but you know, something where you have them as a customer, then it's kind of a bit like nothing, really, isn't it? It's like, oh, 500 people who don't actually care at all heard my thing. But I'd rather just 5 that really actually cared and maybe wanted to buy something or come to a show or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So we're ending up like seeing numbers, but not really seeing any kind of real genuine, and we, you know, we just assume that because, you know, Idols managed it, that there's going to be another band, but you know, they're not really, do you know what I mean? Like even what's name are doing way less well, like Benefits, because they're a bit of a harder proposition. Do you know what I
Was it
mean? So
Lambrini Girls who were on? I can't remember. I think it was Lambrini Girl. A Lambrini girl was on Six Music the other day, and she was quite. It was quite interesting actually because she was saying that you know, if nowadays if you're a musician, you either have, and you either have. She didn't imply which part of this was. I was like, you either have loads of money and you've got the time and the effort to really push,
mm,
push, push, or you've got loads of money and connections. But
mm,
most, like 90% of musicians now are trying to, if they want to actually make it as a paid musician to get an actual record label, they are all working jobs and
yeah,
they
yeah,
have to, and they don't
absolutely,
have that.
absolutely.
And we don't have that culture anymore. So, you know, I mean, you're way older than me, mate. But,
Thanks.
but
Yeah.
but you know, back in the day, it was you
Yeah,
form a band with your
yeah, but I
friends.
also saw Green Day on Dookie Tour, so you know, never mind,
I know,
eh?
I'm so jealous. I know, but it's fine. That was the other funny thing I told you when I went to see the American Idiot anniversary thing in June when I saw that 18-year-old who's like, oh, Green Day are my favorite artist because my Spotify replay told me so, and that's
Yeah,
literally
yeah,
how kids are
exactly.
listening
Like
to
you
music
don't know
now.
who your favorite artist is because you just love them, because you like, because they get something out of you, because you feel obligated to defend them if you hear someone slag them off. Like there's millions of
Yeah,
reasons that someone would be your favorite artist or band,
yeah,
but that some computer thing suggested it to you because of your listening habits is
yeah,
not the right way of looking at it. Like I love Nirvana to death. Like they're the reason I even play. They're like, you know, they're everything to me. But I don't listen to Nirvana that often. In fact, I get quite upset sometimes when I listen to them. So I tend not to listen to Nirvana anywhere near as much as I listen to some bands that I like far less.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
So
doesn't always make, it doesn't always calculate. Things
no.
don't always compute. Music isn't a science as well. As much as you can learn all the technique and you can learn methods and everything like that, it's not a science. It's magic. It's magic. It it doesn't make sense. It provokes a reaction that doesn't make sense out of someone for something that you did that you didn't know that you were going to do, that you just kind of needed to do, and then you did it, and then somehow that other person needed to hear that as well. So it's not science, it's a magic, totally. So the more that people try and prescribe specific formulas and things for it, I think the more it goes off track.
Well, yeah. And so what I was going to say is that, at the back in the days of yore and
Like, sorry, I
yonder,
was just going to say,
mm,
music's more like love. It's very hard to quantify why.
yeah, yeah. And why used to be, I want to make music. I have this, I love it. I'm going to either form a band or I'm going to be a solo artist and tourist around my local area.
Mm.
And then you build up your community. And then you get onto local radio and you're like, yes, I've got onto local radio. And then with any luck, the local radio then spreads to national radio.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
and then you get picked up and then it used to spread, but you still had people back in the day um not making
oh,
it, but
of
being
course.
famous in their own community
Right,
and being able to even just
yeah.
sustain even a part-time,
Yeah.
thing.
Even
It
just keeping it
used to be,
interesting for themselves. A lot of what I say to bands now is like, it's one thing if you don't want to make it, but if you constantly want to be playing better gigs, reaching more people, getting played on stuff, getting covered in stuff, then there's a certain amount of, you're in the industry. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Where the reality of the industry is that tons of people who are in the industry, it isn't their full-time job.
yeah. And
Tons of people in
I
the industry.
I've
Some
yeah,
people who you would go, what? No way. That's not their real full-time job. No way.
mm,
They're so big,
mm,
but it's
mm.
not.
And
So that's,
actually, I've been one of the bands I work with. They recently did a gig, and then they made friends with the other band that was on the bill, and now they've stayed in touch, and they're doing other, shows together. And I think that's what the crux of it is. If you need to get that, you need to get those in-person relationships and that
yeah,
that in-person communication going,
yeah, the
and then
community.
your social media will follow, because
Well,
ultimately, like
that's
the
the
pan,
interesting thing, though, because this is what nobody converts, like, nobody in their brain goes, oh, I'll just do on social media what I would have done in real life. Everybody attacks social media like it's, oh, I've got to be a marketing man and I've got to have the perfect logo and design and we've got to have the perfect grid and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but that's not what getting in a band was like. You just bumped into someone randomly and you got chatting with them and you got a, and you love your icon, Double Speed Playhouse. I love your avatar. Um, so you just got into it organically and you bumped into people and you met people and you kind of were open to it and you wanted something, so you were like keen to chat and you were keen to network. Now everybody's like, oh, I've got my social media, I'll put it out to who I like and I won't put it out to who I don't like, and I'll be very particular about how I present it all. And it's like, that's so pretentious compared to the gigging process. Do you know what I mean? The
yeah, and
getting your band out there.
there's a difference about having an aesthetic as yourself and who you want to portray as an artist, or even who you feel like you are as an artist, versus like, oh, but is this, gonna bring in the likes? And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, actually, you'll probably find that if you're true to yourself and you present yourself in the way that because you've just got to be as authentic as possible. That's what people have always liked. Like, what was you look at every kind of TV show back when we were growing up, it's
Mm.
the authenticity. It's, you look at presenters, oh, I can relate to them. Oh, I really
Right,
like,
yeah.
not in a basic
Yeah,
way,
and
but
they
in
don't
a
have
kind
to
of like, oh,
be
they're
like,
cool.
it's not even like they're authentically themselves. Like, it could be like that they just seem like they're that thing, if that makes sense. Like, so like I'm not saying that what were you saying like about 90s presenters? Right. So I'm not saying Jane Middlemiss really is that smart about music or would be that easy to get on with. But on that show, she seemed like she was smart about music and easy to get on with. So that kind of leads you in. So you don't even, she might be awful and know nothing. Do you know what I mean? But we don't really know. But at least what she was portraying was something that kind of was befitting of the work that she was doing. Whereas I feel like everybody's trying to kind of like put on like a like I'm a fancy brand that you should like. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, really? Isn't that what like sucks about like when we were in the 90s? We used to like look at stuff. The more branding, the more you know. Corporate planning seemed to be in something. The more cynical we were about it, the more they seemed to be throwing a bit of a spanner in that works. The more we would like it. Like if Pearl Jam would put out stuff with extra songs on it so that it wouldn't be chart eligible, but the fans were getting more music. So it was like Pearl Jam are the best band in the world ever because they like say they're trying to not chart whilst having massive sales, and they're giving their fans more music in the process. So what could be cooler than that? So I don't understand when we swapped around to this like, oh, and I also don't understand, whilst we're on the topic, I don't understand why we would spend all this time getting people to go to this other platform, Spotify, to listen to music for free when we don't get paid for it, when we've already got them here on this platform,
Well, yeah,
right?
and also
It's
I
become
speak to
irrelevant. We
I speak to
might as well just put the song on your social media.
mm,
What's the
I
point in even having a
well,
Spotify,
yeah,
right?
yeah, I speak to so many bands who are like, oh, I'm just really into like the playlisting. It's like, yeah, but actually, if you signed yourself up to PRS or equivalent and got played on the radio, you'd actually make money from that. Can you imagine actually making
Yeah,
money
yeah,
from your radio play? Oh,
yeah.
what's the point
Actually
of radio?
making
I think
money
what
from being
everyone
paid.
should do is actually just get off streaming
Mm.
and just listen to radio stations all flipping day.
Oh, there's enough, aren't there? There's
Yeah,
indie radio stations. There's alternative radio stations. There's like the mainstream ones. There's genre specific
yeah. There's
radio
your
stations.
local
There's more
radio
than enough.
station. There's,
The art of curation as well. The art of taste making is really dead now. And
yeah,
like DJs used to find you cool new stuff, and that's how you used to get into new stuff, because you could find new stuff via people who had strong opinions about music, who wanted to make
yeah,
taste. They wanted to go, look, this is hot, this is
yeah.
good, I like this. And that is a dying art now. And I don't know why we've ended up in this world without like tastemakers, and where instead we've signed it all over to, oh, can we let like a machine tell me what to listen to instead
Yeah,
of a human?
but even if you
What?
look into like Six Music, for example, which, out of all of them, Six Music, and there's some good, you've got Iggy's show, and
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's plenty of good stuff on that.
even still, it's not like they are allowed to just go. Do you know what? I went to a gig the other night, and
And
I
this
this
band was
band's
great, so
really
I'm going to play
cool.
them.
They get given a certain amount
Yeah.
of tunes that they get to choose from. Like, this is no diss on Skunk and Nancy at all, because
Mm.
they're our favorite
Yeah,
band. But the
yeah,
amount
yeah.
of times that new single was played on Six Music this week, that's not because someone really liked it. It's like
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's the MySpace thing. Oh, Lily Allen was discovered on
I'm glad
MySpace. No,
they're
she
getting it.
wasn't.
I'm glad they're getting it instead of someone else. But
Yeah,
at the
but it's
same
because they've
time,
got a good agent.
it is a totally fixed system, isn't it? So,
Yeah,
but also
so
it's not a fixed system that promotes the underground and that brings up the thing is, the in the olden days they used to make money out of constantly grabbing things from the underground and bringing it up, so that they constantly refreshed the culture. Now that there's less money in music, they don't have to refresh the culture. They just keep you fed with the same 10 artists that have been big for the last 2 decades now. Do you know what I mean? So and the chance of a Wet Leg or an Idols or whatever, like, they're not big, they're not massive, they're like, come on, compared to like Nirvana or like, do you know what I mean? It's not even like Wet Leg make the Breeders seem massive. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, anyway, so
I
so
think
the
this is a
the,
bit of
the
a
levels
big
that we're hitting are not,
yeah.
yeah,
And I think this is kind of going more into like
yes, into a
PR
whole
and
like,
stuff.
what are we doing here all, yeah.
But
But yeah, specifically with regards to socials, which is what you
yeah,
deal in, and I
I
guess radio. It was important to talk about
yeah,
radio, though.
of
Yes, you do
course.
do
But I
radio
think
plugging.
what my main it's really difficult to put my message across, but what I'm trying to say to all musicians at the moment, or you know, I think yes, uh, Space Boy is what he's done and how he's managing X
Mm.
is atrocious, but it is
The
still,
place
despite
for
all
radio.
that, it's the place for radio. It's you you know, I'm you can make all these dramatic, I'm off here and I'm only going to be on Instagram, but they're all as bad as
They
each
all
other.
suck.
It
Mm.
doesn't matter. They're all pushing agendas. Some of them are a bit more obvious than others. Some are, have very questionable ethics
Mm.
for what they're using their platforms for. So what I
Mm.
would say is, I think I used the
And
example
they
of
all have questionable ethics in terms of how they're run. They're all like these
exactly,
distant things where if you have a problem, you can't get anything done
exactly.
about it. Do you know what I mean? So,
Exactly. So what I would, and ultimately they just want your money
mm.
anyway. But I think I was mentioning about earlier to you about Prince
And your
putting
data.
his and your data. And I think I was mentioning about Prince earlier about how he put his CDs out of the Daily Mail. And I'm
Yeah,
sure Prince didn't just go, oh, do you know what? Bit of a, right wing rag mag, like I don't really agree with what they're saying. He's
mm.
like, right, well, okay, I don't agree with what they're saying, but this is a great opportunity to get this CD out to as many people as possible. They're going to pay me X amount of money.
Yes,
And I'm sure there's something in there of like, and if I can get a few like people who, if I can change some people's way of thinking through my music, even
sure.
better,
Yeah,
you
it
know?
did have a song called Compassion, literally as the first song, didn't it? So,
Yeah.
I don't know how much it rubbed off on the readers of that paper, but
Well, it
um,
didn't rub off on the people I know who read it, but
yeah, I know,
they
yeah,
didn't listen to the
exactly.
album that
But
much.
so yeah, I mean, obviously, the main thing that I would say about that is obviously Prince was very good at making sure that he got paid for his work. The Again, when we talk about the exposure tokens and the sacrifice for exposure tokens, that's all social media is. No one's paying us for anything on here, where it's a platform where we find our customer. So, which then we might be able to get some money out of if we can ever get them to buy something related to us because they don't buy music anymore. Do you know what I mean? So I do think there's levels to how complacent or how complicit people want to be, but we need alternatives. We don't need just people going, "Oh, well, I'm not doing that anymore," and that's it. Do you know what I mean? Because we need alternatives. We need ways that musicians can reach people who want to listen to music and want to listen to new music that aren't gatekept, don't have huge financial barriers in front of them. We need, which means basically we need an organic network. And so people do need to start getting back into the concept of, we still have online. We don't, it doesn't all have to be through social media platforms either. Do you know what I mean? There is still the internet outside of social media, which I think people might have forgotten about to a degree. Do you know what I mean? And so I think there just got to be more scope for how are we going to get people who are actually interested in this stuff beyond just the basic mainstream kind of, because also I don't know how much pickup we get from that anyway. Like most people are just scrolling and they aren't very committal. So really we need to get more organized about reaching the people who do genuinely care as well, because almost social media almost becomes an excuse for not doing your job well sometimes. Oh, well, I post all the time on social media. Yeah, sure, but are you doing anything apart from posting on social media? Because your band doesn't exist if you're only on social media. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
like if
you
you're not
can't
doing
turn the wheel if
anything,
the cars run out of petrol or electricity, however you're
yeah,
running your car, you
yeah.
know. But
I
I'm
mean,
moving it, but how fast? Is
yeah, yeah.
everything are all the cogs
Well,
turning, you know?
like I think people stop networking and they stop trying to get press and they stop trying to get radio and they stop trying to. Do you know what I mean? They think that they don't need to play live and they think that they don't. Do you know what I mean? There's like so many things that. And don't get me wrong, I get it. If you can't do all the things you can, but and even come do a consultancy with me and I'll show
Mm.
you what you can do. But yeah,
But yeah, I
which
think if
is
there's, yeah, it's venues have, I think venues, especially in the UK, I think other countries are better, but the UK venues this year need to do more to showcase artists and also make them feel like they can actually make a living from this by giving them a fair pay for their performances.
Voodoo, sorry.
Venues.
Uh yeah, I mean I hear you completely, but if no one comes to the gig, you can't pay, you've just spent money on the hall, on the venue itself. So as the promoter, I think like bands need to actually get followings. They need to work harder. Like you have, most bands are just happy just playing around their town 5 times in 1 month, and it's like nobody wants to see you that much. Get them all to one gig that you play. Get everybody to one gig that you play rare. One rare gig that you play, and get them all to that one and have a great gig instead of a weird gig where 5 people came along. Do you know what I
I
mean?
was
Like
thinking about a comparison actually. I was thinking in my head the comparison
once,
between
sorry,
when we.
once you've played enough supporting loads of bands and got, once you've done the city, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but do you remember how back in Oxford the punts used to be such a big thing? I mean, we were very lucky in Oxford that we had
Yeah,
many music
Oxford's
venues,
super
but
sophisticated, well, was super sophisticated and is
that
now.
was everyone from the age of 18 to 50 who was into music at all in Oxford be like, that is the calendar, and I'm going to take the day off work the next day, and I'm going to travel around all the different venues, and I'm going to see all,
Yes,
and
yeah,
the
absolutely.
venues were rammed. And then I was going to compare that with bar festivals that we went to in May,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
where you had this big, huge pull-out program of like events going on across like 20 different venues, but it was all just trash.
Yeah,
And I'm
I mean,
sure there was some good
I want to
in
like,
there,
I want to get into like quality
but
because it's
what
really
I mean
hard
by
to.
trash, what
Sorry,
I mean by
uh, can I just finish my sentence? It's just because it's really hard to define what is worth doing. For some people, they listen to Coldplay all the time, so like they, and if those people want to go and watch live music and they want to watch bland bands like Coldplay, and people want to be in bland bands like Coldplay, fucking more power to them.
okay, but
Okay, so
what
the quality doesn't really matter, and I don't want to be a taste uh, adjudicator. Do you know what I mean? What I'm saying is the amount of level of work that bands are putting in, that that promoters are putting in, that everybody is putting in needs to increase, and it needs to be in a collaborative community network. And I don't really care whether bands are good or bad. That is depending on your taste. Like if someone sold like millions of Coldplay records, then who am I to like say, well, we shouldn't have venues for that stuff? Do
what
you know
I
what I
mean
mean?
by
Mm,
trash is the
mm.
curation was trash, i.e., you didn't need 20 venues with like hired in bands that do covers for the majority of it, with a choir here and then like some acoustic dude here, and it was too much. All what works is just do it in the music venues that are music venues, have local bands and bands that are going to bring their following to it. That's what makes a good free music festival, not something that's like, oh yeah, I might go and see the what was that covers band that was
Yeah, I don't
playing.
know. I don't know if we're on to, I don't know if we either are agreeing about things right now or that we're on to like totally different topic.
I'm talking about community. I'm
Yeah,
talking about building a
yeah, but what
community
I'm
and a
saying is
following.
like, so
And you
when it comes
can't
to
do that in a.
Riverside, which is a free event, I
Yeah,
push the bill to have like the weirdest things I can possibly come up with,
yeah.
random gospel things, like all sorts of stuff. So I don't think billing is actually important at all. I think people getting off their ass and going to a venue and being interested in music and not writing off everything and going, oh, well, I liked that when I was young. And I might now, it's 30 years later, I might go and revisit that band playing my favourite album
Sure,
from
but
like
when you're
30 years ago.
prioritizing out of town, covers bands over like
Yes,
local
absolutely. But
bands.
that's a problem with event management throughout the,
Mm.
like throughout Bath, throughout cities in general, is that they hire in, you know, they hire in entertainers basically. when they have a local scene. That's,
Mm.
but I don't know whether that's got anything to do with whether bands need to be on social media or not, is what I'm saying.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that the whole nature of how these things work nowadays is very different to having, I guess, because there's not really any music venues anymore, so you can't really put on a thing. It's difficult to put on a festival. It's better up north, actually. There's like festivals that are going on in Manchester, which are very like specifically like punk festival, and they've got like a day pass and you can
Mm.
go to all the different venues and you've got like,
Yeah,
and that kind of a thing is popular. What I'm saying is like there's less of that going on, where it's like where people are more likely to go out,
yeah, yeah,
find
yeah,
new musicians and then
yeah. I
build
mean,
and then translate to social media. No one's going to go and see a swing, a covers
sure. I
band
think
that do things
what
and
I'm
then go and
trying
follow them
to,
on social
I
media
think
and follow
maybe
their
what I'm
journey.
I think maybe what might be kind of the problem is living in Bath is that it's like got no idea when it comes to local music
Mm,
whatsoever, and it's got no interest in it whatsoever either. So people are just as happy with some dude with a fiddle playing Cotton Eye Joe as they are with a really great band that they should have been actually seeing all this time. Do you know what I mean? So I do think other cities are better at
yeah.
delivering their music packages. So I wouldn't judge it all by some lame Bath event. And also, I think like you shouldn't necessarily expect the city to do it. The whole point
No,
is, are you rebellious or not?
that's true.
Right. So are you going to go and put on what you want to see, or are you going to wait for someone to do it who's part of a establishment?
Yeah, yeah,
Like I
yeah.
don't understand the idea of waiting for the establishment to give us anything. Do
Hmm,
you know what I mean? I don't like the punt wasn't put on by Oxford City Council. It was
that's
put on
true.
by Night Shift. Do you know what I mean? So
Hmm,
Bath City Council, as long as I think as long as the City Council is putting on any music, then great, because
hmm,
it could be putting on none.
that's
Okay,
true.
but every city is got a load of shit. It's got a load of great music, so there's no need to bring in a load of shit from elsewhere. Basically, do you know what I
Hmm,
mean? So, or even good stuff from elsewhere, you don't need it. Do you know what I mean?
hmm,
So, um, but also, yeah, don't wait for like the establishment to support your rebellious project.
no,
That
it's
seems weird.
true.
And also how much, which is part of what brings us back to the whole discussion, which is why are we on this? Why are we here? Why are we
Hmm,
in this place, which is the establishment? This is the establishment. Why are we, the rebels, still going to be on here? And that's the
hmm,
decisions that I think everybody needs to. And if we're not, where are we going to go? Where are we going
yeah,
to meet up?
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If we can't do what we're doing here anymore, either because of our conscience or because of our reach or because of any other factor,
Hmm,
where are we going to go and what are we going to do?
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because waiting for the boss man to say it's okay to be a rebel
Hmm,
is totally counterintuitive. So anyway,
it's
um,
difficult.
we've talked for over an hour.
I told you.
Hello, the tact. How are you doing? You rock, by the way. Um, yeah, go. I'm afraid we're finishing now, so you'll have to go back and watch it. But it was really, I think it was good, wasn't it? It was interesting. We went in some different things. We didn't even agree all the time,
I
which is
know,
good, isn't it?
I know, I know. But at
We're
least
allowed.
we didn't agree, and we put our reasons behind, and we didn't just
Yeah,
say, I just don't,
yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah,
because I feel
but
that way.
yeah. So I mean, um, anyway, go and follow Delirious Agent and hire her for your radio plugging, because you want to get in people's ears directly. You want to get your music straight in people's ears, and on a radio you can do that, and you can meet some other bands via there. If you actually listen back to the shows, you might hear some other good bands. You can network with them. You can be friends. I
Yeah,
explained this
exactly.
to someone the other day during consultancy. They're like, "Wow, that's really clever." I was like, "Oh, is it?" I thought it was like the first thing that would come to your mind, but maybe it doesn't come to everybody's minds. I don't know if
No,
everybody's like they were back in the 90s and stuff, where they were like, had to do a lot of hustling. Do you know what I mean? You had to be always
yeah. Well, also I
constantly
think
pushing, you know?
the pandemic made people very agoraphobic and very nervous. I think we're in a society where like, and with these things that we're talking on, people don't know how to just talk in person. Like
Yeah, I
the
mean,
amount
I
the amount
I
of people I
must
know who are in
say,
their 20s who don't actually use a telephone, and
right,
they're
yeah,
just like,
yeah,
I can't even do that.
yeah,
I can't.
yeah. I mean, to all of those people, I would say I was a very nervous, outcast kid, and literally the only way that I did actually get a grip on stuff really was because I got into the band scene, and they were all really, comparatively at least, welcoming, and and I made really good friends, and I made a really great network of people who I respect and admire and things, and it's we're easy to get on with. There's nothing nervous about going into the band scene. You're sure you're going to meet some douches, of course. It's a bunch of egos. Do you know what I mean? But generally speaking, well, right, and we kind of all want to be mates, really, and do like cool music, and everybody just be cool and everything. So we're certainly not
Yeah.
up for like a fight all the time. So just
Oh,
get involved. Do you know what I mean? Don't be fearful. Do you know what I mean? Don't be fearful. You know,
yeah.
like, just
I
get involved, get stuck in,
yeah.
make
I
some
learned
friends,
too
and draw
late.
them back to you.
Yeah.
Don't put it all on this platform. You lose this platform, or you move off this platform, and you lose all that work. And that means you just
Yeah.
did that work for them. Same as Spotify. If one day Spotify is not popular, and trust me, that day might be coming,
Yeah.
then all that work, all that money, all that effort you put in, what was it
Yeah.
for? Draw them back to you. Get them back to a mailing list, a website, a Bandcamp, a YouTube.
Yeah.
Something where you have more control, and it's not likely to disappear tomorrow or piss you off so much you don't even want to be on there.
Use it as one of your many tools in your
Yes.
arsenal. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's an
Use it.
important one and one we can't,
It's
unfortunately.
using you, so you might as well use it back.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, thank you, Grace.
Thank you. And everyone should hire Lee to talk at them and tell them what to do because he's so wise.
I don't know if I'm wise. I certainly know what things used to feel a bit more like, and what's missing now, if you know what I mean. I think that's become quite clear over the last little while. The more you investigate this modern industry, having known the old one, the more you
Mm.
kind of go, wow, so that that isn't a
Wow.
thing anymore. That isn't a thing anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Just the nature of, for example, following up on an artist or a band. Oh, so that's less
Mm.
of a thing in this industry. Do you know what I mean? In this
Yeah.
modern industry.
So
That's
I used to like
interesting.
MySpace when that became a
Yeah,
thing because
MySpace was
like
easily
you
the
just
best social media that's ever
it was
existed. I'd say
so
Instagram ranks a second, but
do you think I quite liked Bebo when it was your Bebo was good. Your
yeah,
Bebo was the best profile
yeah, enough.
ever.
Yeah, okay, okay. So
No, the one thing that MySpace sucked of it was that you'd have like your top 5 friends on it, and then like if you
yeah,
got
so you had to
removed
like
from someone's
prioritize
friend,
who's your best friend. Yeah,
yeah,
no, that's
and then you'd be
good.
like, no, they're not my friend, and you get removed from that person's top 5. Like, why have I been removed from the top 5
Oh
friends?
no,
What did I do? And then you'd
gosh,
put My
yeah.
Chemical Romance on and cry. I miss those days so much.
I never put. Did I ever put My Chemical Romance on and cry? I don't think I did. No, I don't think I
Only
did. I think I was a bit old for
cry because you
crying.
didn't
Well, I was
like
working
them.
at Gap at the time, so I might have winced a bit and kind of like, yeah, I might have been, speaking of big corporate behemoths. But yeah, so I might have been in a weakened state. So but anyway, yes. Thank
I'm
you very
doing this
much
for the thumbnail, by the way.
for this for the
Mm,
thumbnail. All right,
mm.
I'm going to choose the thumbnail though.
I know,
So
but this I'm
okay,
just
well I'll do
helping
this
you.
for the thumbnail. Okay, that should be enough. Okay,
Mm.
thank you very much. Okay, see you then. I'll see you in a moment when we have dinner. Bye.
Bye.